Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guitar Souls podcast. This is episode number 129, and I am one of your hosts, the Purple Levi Clay, here with my handsomely purpley dressed friend, Mr. Mike McLaughlin. How's it going, bud?
Purple burglar alarm. Just for you.
He did it. Fantastic.
Just for you.
Thank you very much. I'm a lighter shade of purple.
Yes, you are.
That's not the song, but we'll
Something like
that. How's life? You been up to much?
Just the usual, man. Going to work, working, being at work, leaving work, thinking about going back to work. Basically that and spending time with the wee man. Him and I went down to the park the other day. He went round the skate park. He was showing me all his tricks on his bike. And then we went to the swing park, and then he went to his dad's, and I helped my brother and my dad take a shed down, and just non-stop.
So nothing music related. It
was at band practice last night, and we smashed the set twice, and the Damnation set sounding pretty fucking tight, and we've almost perfectly timed it. Like, we've got a 35-minute window for playing, and we timed the set last night. We did it twice, so we did it where we thought we were squeezing an extra song in. So I think we've done 6 or 7 tracks. The first time round, we were just over 40 minutes, and we're like, that's not too bad, but we don't want to run over too much. Yeah. Like a minute maybe oversight would be all right. So right, we'll cut one song. This is the song we're cutting. Let's just smash the set again. Press play. This was including the samples and click tracks and stuff, so everything was perfectly timed, and it came out to 35 minutes and 6 seconds. So perfect.
Yeah.
So we're right, perfect. That's a set. So we're going to practice that set for the next 2 weeks.
Nice.
And everyone was sounding really good. Chris has got his new bass, obviously. His beautiful Waghorn, the Pale Moon Ebony Machine. He has been getting his tones dialed in on that. Spent a time in the studio himself, and it's sounding really, really good. And, well, I'm obviously constantly making a fucking racket. So I was fucking about with my settings on my dead old Jet City, and I'm quite happy with the sound I've got, especially out that fucking cab, that MF400.
Cab nerd.
Those stupid K100 speakers are absolutely unbelievable, and a big oversized wooden cabinet with no back throw. Just, so when you stand right out front of it, man, it's like a big punch in the head. And I've not been past volume 3 on the amp.
That's exactly what you want, a nice big punch in the head.
That's great, man. And it's because it's such a quiet amp as well, it feels as if it's gated when it's not. So when you do hit big notes, you get that thwomp. Love it.
I've ordered myself a set of in-ear monitors, a custom fitted set.
ACSs?
Yeah, I got some ACSs.
Fantastic, man.
So I've got to go in for my mouldings for those.
Where are you going for the moulds?
The Fort. Yeah, the boots at the Fort.
That I was going to say, because the optometrist, what do you call it?
Audiologist.
ENTs can do it.
Yeah.
Aye. I guess it's cheaper than going to an actual clinic, isn't it?
You don't pay for the fitting.
ACS are...
Yeah, you just buy the thing, and they just send you a voucher for a free fitting, which they foot the bill for.
Well,
for
the price of your in-ear monitors, you would hope that.
Well, then I also ordered some not monitors, but just some hearing protection as well, because they'll have my molds. I got a discount on those, but when I ordered them, they sent me another ear fitting thing. So if you would like just an ear fitting voucher, just for the shits and giggles of having your ears molded,
I would probably do that
kicking around
and get the protection. So please.
I mean, the protection's not cheap, but
there's only so many times that I'm going to buy myself shitty ear molds, and the most expensive ones that I've bought were the Black Star ones that have got ACS attenuators in them, just the actual reduction ones. But because they're just like normal buds, getting them to fit and sit nice and still sound okay is inconsistent, as I'm sure you've been yourself. Thought about so.
So I figured getting some fitted earplugs would be nice.
I would love to get fitted in your monitors, but with Party Cannon I don't see the point.
Why?
Because none of us run any in your monitor setups, and the chances of doing so are none to none, because even with a basic backline, shit goes wrong for us at every fucking given stage. So the minute we start adding technology is when things are going to go wrong. Even, just as an example, we have obviously samples through the set.
Yeah.
We've been through 2 separate samplers, and four separate samplers, and each one of them has had fucking faults or niggling issues that we couldn't get away from to properly set up. And that's one bit of equipment that just comes as an auxiliary to the rest of the band. You know what I mean? It's a peripheral that we don't actually need.
So technology is a pain in the arse, I will give you that.
Yes.
But if you've got a stage monitor, then you could have in-ear monitors.
Totally.
You could run out of the stage monitor into in-ears, so it's doable.
If I had enough money, I would have already built us up a rack with every one of us
Yeah.
having a wireless belt pack and then a small mixer just to go to. But money. Also, I don't know if there'd be much point because getting used to in-ear monitors is a different thing.
Sure.
But none of us have ever really done it. We have always went with on-stage sound and basically just going with the vibe of each
Sure.
other.
Yeah.
So whether it would make us incredibly tight or worse, I don't know.
Sure, no, that's fair.
But it'd be interesting to try. I would like to try it.
I also popped into Guitar.
Yes, you did.
Picked up a Nord Electro 6, which is the more organ style keyboard. That thing is an absolute fucking blast.
Oh, I bet it is, man.
And here's something that I have to tell you from doing from looking around on YouTube. Right, we give Andertons a really tough time, and we do it because of Rob Chapman. Right?
No, we give Rob Chapman a hard time.
Yes,
and by proxy, Andertons sometimes get.
But so
caught in the crossfire.
We gave Andertons a really hard time because they have that premium version of their videos.
That's not giving Andertons necessarily a hard time. That was us being critical of something that deserved to be critical.
Well,
pay us more money to be advertised to.
Yes.
No.
Yes, but no, that's fair. But I think would we do that if any shop did it? We took interest because it was Andertons. I think if
Guitar launched a premium advertising service to you, I would probably be like, I'm not paying you money for you to make money on sponsorships.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Sorry.
So what I have learned in the last week is actually Anderton's keyboard stuff, Anderton's keyboard videos, top notch, absolutely top notch.
Listen,
blind A/B test with great players, and yeah.
As a retail business, there is no doubting that they are great at what they do. They must be to be that size. It's such a hard market to even exist in, but for them to actually thrive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And we've said this before as well. We spoke about, is it General Lee or Captain Lee, whatever his name is, the captain?
Captain Lee. Yeah.
We've always spoke about respect for him and respect for the brand and the business and the family. It's always just been the having to put up with that. Clinging to hair with the skinny's teeth, terrible patter wank.
Yeah, and that was on reflection for me. Now I've got some experience with I know like guys like Danish Pete in there, like his stuff is great. And now watching all of the keyboard stuff, I just take a step back and go, Jesus, Rob might have got you guys off the ground, but on reflection, what a fucking cancer for the business. Because you ain't looking back on that stuff fondly and going, yeah, we're really proud of this stuff.
It's kind of a shame, because not only that, Rob kind of made that for himself, didn't he, really, by just leaning too hard into trying to be a personality that people would like, in between being an absolute bonnet.
And then let that personality go to his head.
Oh, that too, aye. Absolute bonnet.
We
try
to avoid doing that.
Size of that forehead.
Cool. So I do have COVID stories for you, but we are going to do those when we talk about some COVID-related stories.
Oh.
So we will do that. So in the meantime, did you know? This show is brought to you by our friends over at Ormsby Guitars. We want to remind you guys that there is still time to get involved in the upcoming Run 16 guitars. Those include these incredible hypes available in 5 new colours. That Dragon Burst is absolutely stunning. You can also get your hands on one of the Metal X's, again available in a range of finishes. My personal pick has to be these headless Vs, absolutely outrageously cool. Imagine one of those in an 8-string, I absolutely love these. And finally, the Ando San signature model, available in 6, 7 and 8-string availability. Go and check them out at Ormsby's website right now. This show is also brought to you by our friends over at Rev Amplification, a one-stop shop for all of your tonal needs. Head on over to their website to check out their range of lunchbox amplifiers, both the D20 and G20, 20-watt amplifiers with built-in 2-notes torpedo technology so you can record direct into your computer. If that doesn't suit, you can also check out one of their highly popular G2, 3 and 4 pedals, giving you that trademark Rev tone in a stomp box. Incredible tones, I use these myself. And finally, you may notice in the back of these videos a Rev Generator 120, an absolute masterclass in modern electric guitar tones. Check it out at their site now. So, as always, a huge thanks to our friends and family over at both Ormsby Guitars and Rev Amplification. I have been meaning to reach out to Rev and see if I can score a gate pedal. of course, and I'll get around to that. But the current news is my Rusty Cooley is ordered and on the way. So
You've
I've
also
got
not even got your Duality DX set up properly to try that yet, have
no,
you?
I know, no.
You just like to accumulate pedals.
But here's the thing: I don't know if I'm ever going to have that Duality DX set up to test it out in the way that it should be used. You know what I mean?
Why don't
Because
you just set it up in front of the Gen 120 and just have it 4-cable method constantly plugged in?
Because then I need power run into it.
Right, just get like a single 9-volt block and put it off the wall.
Feels like a lot of effort.
Dude.
But no, I actually can't answer that question because that amp very rarely goes on channel 2, let alone channel 3 or 4. Noise noise just isn't an issue for me. Watching Sean Tubbs put out a great video demo in the gate pedal, but Sean doesn't really play with any gain, so he was demonstrating it from the perspective of eliminating single coil hum and stuff like that, and it obviously does the job, but it isn't necessary. Type. You know what I mean? Like if I was going to go super high gain, I've got exactly what I need.
I think outside of that as well, if you decide that once you've got all your pedals onto your pedal board that you're getting too much, or even if you don't have a bad amount of ground floor noise, if you just want to reduce that, gates are great for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll go there. We'll absolutely do that if that's what I need to do. But high gain.
You could have a double setup of 4-cable method. Buy 2 ABY setups and then run the G8 and the Duality.
Absolute insanity. But yeah, looking forward to that Rusty Cooley showing up. So can't wait to show you guys it, and it will match our shirts. Spoilers. Yeah, we're going to start the show today with we've got a couple of bits of fan mail, and they tie in quite nicely with a couple of stories.
Nice.
So we're going to start with Ryan J's bit of fan mail.
Thanks very much for writing in, Ryan. Top of the insert time of day here to you. Let's say morning, because it is morning.
It is.
Thoughts on John 5 dropping off the tour with Yngwie to keep everyone on his tour team safe and well due to COVID concerns? I'd understand if he didn't just complete multiple tours this year with his own band and with Rob Zombie. Seems like cause COVID is the excuse to get out of things. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate safety and concern, but why all of a sudden? Gracias, fuckers.
So
Ryan.
Let's jump over to John 5's official statement.
Cool. If I can read this first and then I'll answer it. Cool. So, spoiler alert, John 5 has dropped off of his tour with Yngwie Malmsteen out of an abundance of caution, regarding the pandemic. So his statement was, due to the unforeseen circumstances and out of an abundance of caution, I am sad to announce that I will no longer be joining Yngwie on the upcoming US tour. The health concerns for artists and their crew that come with travelling extensively from city to city during this time have meant that myself and my team feel this is the best course of action to keep everybody on my tour team safe and well. I'm certain that these Yngwie shows will be amazing, as they always are. I'm sorry I won't be there to share my new music with you all. I'll be back out on the road as soon as it's safe and possible.
Yeah, he has been out doing shows, and I can't, the health concerns for artists and their crew that's come with travelling extensively, I have to look at that and go, I don't know if your crew, I could obviously be totally wrong on this, but I would be amazed if crews right now are looking at this and going, yeah, actually, we don't want to do any work.
I think it's probably a balanced risk. I'm going to not play devil's advocate, but I'm going to try and be reasoned here. I think of the two things that potentially are happening behind the scenes that John 5 hasn't said, just out of being a businessman and trying to be politically all right, is either, number one, the tour is going to have hotspots in it that John has decided is too risky, if it's maybe places he hasn't played in his last tours.
Right.
Like how Florida was really bad for a time.
Sure.
So he might find that there's certain cities that he's like, I can't do the tour and avoid 2 or 3 dates because that looks shitty, so I'm just going to negate it completely, for his own safety as well as other people's. Or, and again, this is completely me making this up, could be nonsense, there might be concerns because it might be that Yngwie's team and whoever it is that's organised the actual tour haven't taken the same level of precautions that John has on other tours, so he might be unhappy with those safety considerations. How much of that is total conjecture and how much of that is potentially true, I don't know. But I would think they could be two contributing factors.
They definitely could be contributing factors, but there also could be a lot of other, going back to the question, which was, because COVID is an excuse to get out of things these days. I've
been using it for a year and a half to avoid social interaction.
I have been feeling that in places that are outside of music. So restaurants, restaurants, because COVID seems to be like something that is being used for benefit. So the amount of restaurants that are running on a reduced menu because COVID.
I mean,
I went to a fish restaurant
Uh-huh.
the other day, the fanciest fish restaurant in Glasgow, as far as I'm concerned.
Where's that?
Catch. In
I was
Gifton.
going to say Catch because it's the like chippy themed restaurant, isn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely. Well, it is a chippy, but
But it's high end.
it's high end. Yeah,
Yep.
like
Is it
I love it
Shawlands?
because it's in Giffnock.
I think there is one in
They
Shawlands
have
as well,
opened
isn't
up
there?
a second one.
Yeah,
I'm not
okay,
sure where
sorry.
it is. But yeah, I like it because options. When you say I want fish and chips, the question you get back is what fish?
Cod or haddock.
Yeah.
Maybe pollock.
Yeah, or I'll answer cod. Or I can get lobster or like lobster mac and cheese. And I went in there with Melissa, really excited to show her one of my favorite places to get food, and they were running on a reduced menu. And when I say a reduced menu, it was a pile of shit. And we're talking like a fish restaurant in lobster in Scotland says, "Oh, we can't get lobsters." Like, I have literally been to a chip shop that was a hole in the fucking wall in the last 6 months and got fucking lobster out of it. Like, you can get lobster. It's beneficial for the business to run on a reduced menu for as long as possible, right? It's easier for the chefs. It's easier in terms of sourcing stock.
I don't know as much. I think they're going to lose customers if they're doing that, especially them being someone that's clearly has a niche.
They're going to lose customers by giving their customers more options.
No, I'm talking about less. You're talking about it's easier for them to have a reduced menu.
Well, that's the point. So you're absolutely right. They'll lose customers because I won't go back because of it, because I don't see a reason.
Sorted.
Well, even then, because I don't see a reason for me to have gone there and had such limited options. But that's the point. Because COVID is the defense that they bank on. Like, you know, it's not our fault that we're giving you a reduced. I just see because COVID is
that's
an
fair.
excuse. Or if you try and get you know, I've got that sofa and bed sat at the front of my house that I've been trying to get a pickup, a free pickup on. Not sorry, they're charge pickups now, aren't they?
40 quid.
Yeah. Can he fucking get one for love nor money?
Yep.
Because COVID.
Well, why don't you just hire a van and we'll take it down?
Here's the mad thing. I can't remember. Was it you? Somebody told me that they were out driving. They got a Burger King. They threw their receipt out the window. The receipt went near some fly tipping. The council found their receipt near the fly tipping, so sent them a fine for it. Right? Yeah, I know. Whether that's true or not is another matter entirely. But here's the thing: the fine, £40. So what you're telling me is I need to pay you £40 to come and collect stuff from my house, or I can just fly tip it myself and maybe get a £40 fine. Maybe not, as long as I don't put a receipt near it.
There is a real issue in our local area, if we're honest, about fly tipping.
Yeah.
100%. And what the council have caused by introducing these 40 quid to get into it, or like you can't go in with anything that could even remotely be a vehicle that might have been involved in a business.
Yeah.
You drive to work, can't bring your car here. Like it's bizarre. Anyway, I think we're getting totally off track.
We are, but coming back to that idea of because COVID. So I think we
can I put another thing in there? Not just because COVID, because Brexit. There is a lot of issues with supply. There is.
No, but
you get into the supermarket
because Brexit is never going to see. Now you're taking it on a tangent because Brexit is never an excuse that a band's going to be using.
No, but you're talking about restaurants. So you're talking about like a lack of supplies and stuff coming in.
No, I'm using restaurants as an example of because COVID.
Right, never mind. Smart ass.
You're trying to bring us back on track, and then you immediately try and take us off.
No, I was talking about the same thing as you were.
So
you're just being a ball bag.
So to go to Ryan's point,
yes,
yeah, I appreciate the safety concern too, but it does feel like all of a sudden, because we're not talking about a tour next year, we're talking about a tour next month.
Yeah, I know.
It feels a bit late in the day to be doing stuff like that, but this kind of segues onto a couple of other stories that I just wanted to bring up. So John Petrucci, give us a read.
Says it's frustrating, disappointing. Dream Theatre bandmates refused to tour during COVID pandemic.
And here's the quote.
Shut up, John. Yeah. It's an unfortunate decision. John Myung and I really wanted to tour. They are dying to tour and get out there and support the record. Unfortunately, we couldn't convince other guys that it's safe. It's frustrating for me because everything has opened up. Concerts, theatres, arenas and clubs. Bands are out there. A lot of my friends are touring successfully, and there are ways to do it safely, which we are very prepared to do. But like I said, I couldn't convince the other guys it would be safe, so we had to push it out. I hate disappointing people, and I hate disappointing our fans, so it was definitely an unfortunate decision. I think I'd be more disappointed if you went and gigged and then somebody ended up ill. People will be able to see you in a couple of months' time,
or not, because it's the people involved, isn't it? If the band member decides no, because COVID, then it isn't happening. And if you can go out there and tour safely now, it will be no different in 3 or 4 months. It's either safe or it isn't. And so John's either right or wrong. And
says me. I mean, I've been.
Yeah, I was literally about to say,
gigs.
like, you're out there playing gigs. And my question to you is, are they safe or are they not safe?
I'll be honest. The gigs I have played definitely carried risk.
Yeah,
definitely 100%. Like, you're playing in smaller venues,
sure.
So therefore it's a more enclosed space. Probably without slagging any venues, probably like a less extensive ventilation system than a lot of bigger venues. They'll probably have like good HVAC systems rather than just working on maybe a couple of air conditioners and the door open, or a fan. Much tighter places, probably tighter looser regulations than bigger venues as well, because they've obviously got a lot more risk if 2,000 people end up with exposure to COVID rather than 200. But we have been lucky enough that none of us seem to have caught or came into contact with anyone positive while we were on tour.
Yeah.
The closest we had was when Martin picked it up before we went to Bloodstock.
Yeah. But you're going out and gigging in situations that are higher risk than situations Petrucci would be in.
Potentially, yeah.
So it doesn't feel right to say to John, yeah, but you can wait because your fans will, you can do it when it's safe. Like, this is the new normal. This is the way things are now. And we're taking steps for things to be as safe as possible with things like COVID passes. I don't know what the situation's like in the States with things like that. Proof of vaccination.
State by state, pretending that it exists and doesn't.
Yeah.
Or pretending it doesn't exist and then acknowledging that it does, rather. Can I just put a wee kibosh in that?
Sure.
It's not that I'm saying John can't go on tour, it's that his bandmates refuse to put themselves at risk. The difference is that Partican and all accepted the risk was there.
Yeah.
Fair to say?
Oh yeah, totally. It's just the idea that in a few months, because my response to it was a few months from now, his bandmates just might not change their mind because whatever media they consume has kind of swayed their mind one way or the other as to what the dangers of COVID are.
That's it.
I'm gonna do my rant of my life over this last week, right? So everybody that listens to this show knows
that Levi is stupid and hasn't got a doctor yet, despite staying in Scotland for how many years?
You're totally wrong. Of course I have a doctor.
Since when?
It's literally since. How do you think that I'm an outpatient at our local hospital? How do you think that arose by me going to my doctor?
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just wandering into hospitals and like, can I have an MRI scan, please? Can I
scan me, please? Oh, just clap that like fuck.
Yeah. So no, that's fine. So everybody that watches this podcast, though, like I've ripped into Eric Clapton. There is an Eric Clapton anti-vax story. I'm not covering it because I'm not giving him the fucking attention that he's so. I don't want him to be promoting his cause, right?
Okay. Fair.
I'm not anti-vax in the slightest.
No.
In fact, I've told people on the podcast multiple times, get your vaccinations at the earliest possible time. But I am, as of yet, still not vaccinated because I was not sent my letters, I was not sent my appointments, and I didn't want to be a burden on the NHS. That's what we've been told for like the last 2 years, right? Support the NHS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't overburden the NHS. So my wife got her letter saying, right, this is when your vaccination appointment is, and she went in, and I'm like, okay, I'll wait for mine. Never came. Literally just never came. And now we're in a situation in Scotland where I can't go into a venue unless I've got my COVID passport.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Right, let's sort out my vaccination. So I go to a walk-in centre, and I get told, sorry, it's appointments only. Right, okay. How do I get an appointment? You need to contact NHS Lanarkshire. So I walk back to the car, contact NHS Lanarkshire over the phone. They tell me we don't book appointments. All centres are walk-in centres. So I go back to the centre. I'm like, well, they're telling me that I should be able to walk in. And they're like, well, you can't. You can walk in on Saturday, but this was on Monday. You can walk in on Saturday, but you can't walk in now.
And this is when you went in and it was empty.
It was empty.
You told me this.
It was completely empty, yeah.
Bear in mind, this is also inside a sports centre where they've sectioned off what essentially is the size of 2 Olympic football pitches.
Yep.
like, so you can imagine the size of the hole. The
Yep.
roof must be a good 50 or 60 foot tall, and there is no obstructions other than the barriers they've put out.
Yep.
So
And
it holds a lot of people.
the woman says to me, "You can come back on Saturday for the walk-ins," and I'm like, "That's not soon enough. That's 6 days from now. I'm being told legally that I need these vaccines in order to go into venues. I need to get this sorted." Also, technically speaking, I fall in an at-risk group because I'm overweight. So, like, I'm supposed to have these vaccinations. She's like, "Well, it won't matter if you get them on Saturday because you still won't be able to go into venues because it's 8 weeks between vaccinations." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? It's 3 weeks between vaccinations." She's like, "No, it got changed to 8 weeks." We are like the only country in the world where that's the case.
The recommended time between vaccinations was 3 weeks,
Yeah.
given the medical guidelines.
Sure.
Because we live in Britain,
Yeah.
and because we are arse backwards, and people seem to think they know better, I think this was to soften the blow on supply chains
Yeah.
of getting vaccines into
Yep.
the UK. They decided it was going to be 8 weeks in between.
It's absolutely nothing to do with when it's right for you to have them.
Mhm.
It's to do with our inability to actually provide them when people need them, and that's where this story goes.
If you can get to a drop-in centre, you can get it earlier.
Only if your doctor has approved it.
Really?
Yes.
I got mine
Because
before
I-
I was supposed to.
Because I asked them, I was like, sorry, we went back to the car, Melissa phoned NHS and was like, right, what's up with this 8 weeks thing? And they're like, it can be less, but you need to get your doctor to give you a medical reason. And she's like, what would one of those medical reasons be? And they were like, we don't know. It depends what your doctor says. And you're not going to go to your doctor and go, I'm ill, so put me at further risk, because apparently, anyway, you get where I'm getting with this. So I get on the phone to NHS Lanarkshire and I'm like, well, can I get to a drop-in centre today? They're like, there is one, but it's a bit of a journey. So I drove for 45 minutes to the other side of Glasgow and queued
To
up
the airport?
for a walk-in. Yeah, just past the airport.
Uh-huh.
For a walk-in, queued up for 30 minutes. There was a queue of over 100 people there, and after queuing for almost 30 minutes, someone came down and was like, they've run out of vaccines. Fantastic. Okay, cool. So I'll drive all the way fucking home. Have to go back to the walk-in centre on the Saturday. The Saturday just gone. Turn up for the walk-in centre. There's a queue of people there. Woman comes to the back of the queue. Have you got an appointment? No. It's a walk-in day, isn't it? Yeah, but we've run out of vaccines for walk-in, so it's appointment only. What? This was at 11 o'clock in the morning. 11 o'clock in the morning. It's 8 weeks between vaccines because they cannot fucking get anyone vaccinations. I am being told, legally speaking, that in order to enter a fucking venue, I need a vaccine for my own health and safety, a vaccine that will save my fucking life. And the Scottish government is saying that we're all in this together, but at the same time, we can't get you a fucking vaccination if you need one. It is a ridiculous crock of shit, and I know that people think that I'm right wing when it comes to politics.
I don't think anybody's ever said you're right wing.
A lot of people say that I'm right wing.
I've heard you say you're authoritarian. Not authoritarian, sorry. What am I talking about?
I always say the same thing, right? I'm
Authoritarian,
socially
that guy.
liberal. I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative.
Yes, sorry.
That's always where I skew on things. So people think, "Whoa, you're a horrible Nazi," and associations with Marcus, right? Obviously.
I've had that argument with people. You're friends with him, therefore.
Yeah, it just
he believes
makes
this,
me,
and therefore.
it makes me want to vomit because I just know how left all of Scotland falls and how much support there is for the SNP.
You say all of Scotland.
Most of the relevant part of Scotland, compared to England, especially.
I mean, given that we have a Tory sitting in the Ravenscraig seat, that I wouldn't say that the relevant part. I mean, anybody that voted Tory on the Ravenscraig
Sure.
has the shortest memory in existence. Fucking goldfish brains.
Yeah, but we're talking of that's like 5% of the country. Like,
I know,
yeah,
totally. But
yeah.
my point is, like,
We just like to make out that our government here is doing such a fucking great job,
well, no.
and there is a massive, massive failure here, and it's a massive, massive failure for people that to politicians don't matter. It's poor people, it's underprivileged people. Because this place where I went to and I was watching over 100 people queuing for a vaccine, there were no wealthy people there.
Mm-hmm.
This is all poor people queuing outside of fucking Morrison's in order to get a vaccine so they can go into venues and things like that. And I would also point out that this walk-in day was the day after it was mandatory for you to have a vaccine to go in places. You'd think that they would have queued up to the fact that, demand might be a little bit fucking higher, because that's why they put it in place, wasn't it? They put it in place because they want to encourage people to get their vaccines.
I
Which
didn't
again,
think it was demand was higher.
is a good thing.
Yes.
I'm pro-vaccination, but fucking hell, if you're going to make it legally, you're legally obligated to get your vaccine, the first part of that should be, well, we should have a surplus of vaccines so we can provide these vaccines to people.
Yes.
Because it could very possibly happen that I turn up to do a gig with Melissa, and although as we're working on the gig, we don't have to show proof of vaccination in order to go into the venue, it's entirely possible that we could turn up somewhere where they might say, well, it's not legally responsible, but that's the policy we've taken. And we could just be turned away. And it would be a crock of shit, because let's add in the final detail to this. I had COVID three months ago. I am in that glorious period of actually being, as far as scientists are concerned, COVID immune.
Is this a real thing? Because I believe it was a theory but hadn't been
but
substantiated.
isn't that the whole point, right? All of this is theory, which moves us on to this story. So Serge Tankian has caught COVID despite being double vaccinated.
He's got a breakthrough
and
case.
has had to postpone shows this weekend.
Wow.
So let's read his quote.
Cool. Comment on social media, Tankin assured fans he'd contracted the virus despite being both vaccinated and incredibly careful. He also rather notably asserted that touring is not something I intend to continue doing down the line. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
After having 3 really fun shows, I got back to LA with flu-like symptoms. I'm shocked that it could even be COVID, as I'm just not just vaccinated, but also incredibly careful. I am so sorry to have to push these dates yet again, especially to those who made sacrifices to be here from out of town. Touring is not something I intend to continue doing down the line, so these handful of shows have meant the world to me. Thank you for your love and understanding.
Because once again, being vaccinated will not stop you from getting COVID.
It will just soften.
It will soften the symptoms. It won't stop you from carrying COVID or passing COVID on to people who either are vaccinated or aren't vaccinated. So coming back to that idea of being socially liberal but financially or economically conservative, like the socially liberal part would be the part where I'm like, COVID passport, but also not being able to get a vaccine. COVID passport is going to make everything okay, because if you've got your COVID passport, you're going to be safe and you won't be able to get COVID. It's not helping. It's not fucking helping, and it is potentially musicians and things. It's putting people out of being able to work, which makes me sound like Clapton. Go and get your vaccines, but also at the same time, government, sort it out so people can actually get their fucking vaccines, because the Scottish government that's doing such a great job, and we like to tell the world we're doing such a great job. I'll say this one more time. I have been turned away from getting a vaccination 3 times in 1 week.
Pretty poor.
That's
I know that when
exceptionally poor.
Even like testing and stuff.
Yeah.
Sean, just before Marshall's wedding, had obviously a bit of concerns about having to get tested because he got what turned out to be a false positive, but he got a positive result.
Yep.
He had to ask his partner to drive him all the way to Kirkcaldy, which is what, an hour and a half for here?
Yeah.
Easy, just to get tested.
Yeah. And that's, again, fortunate position of privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always say this, I'm in a position of privilege, and it sounds ridiculous to call it a position of privilege, but I have access to transport. That is considered a position of privilege, right?
I would say so,
I'm happy to acknowledge that. And a more obvious position of privilege is that as a self-employed person with a business that does good, I can take off time whenever I need to or want to take off time.
Yep.
So if I literally said on the phone to NHS, just tell me where I can get a vaccine. I literally don't care if I have to drive to London. I will drive to London right now. It's not a problem. I'll go as far as I have to. Just get me a vaccine. I have got an appointment for Monday now, but it's not local. It's not local at all.
Where
I've got to drive other side of Glasgow, further out this time.
Where to, Paisley?
I'm not sure. Melissa's got the details of where it is.
Right.
But the crazy thing is, she was like, I can't get you one in your local area, and trust me, you don't even want to know when I'd be able to get you an appointment in your local area.
Something must have happened then, because I've had appointments in the same place you're talking about, Ravenscraig, and I also went for a walk-in, and it was empty.
Yeah. It's vaccine passports. It's making it mandatory, like that you have to have a vaccine in order to be able to go places and do things.
But I don't think the pickup would have been all that much higher based on just making that mandatory. The people that are going to refuse it are going to refuse it regardless.
I don't know.
But you might be right.
People that want to go out to a club that were going to refuse it, and now they find out they go to a club with their friends, and they're like, oh, there's literally no way I can talk my way around this on the door. Okay, I'll go and sort it.
I do have a friend who didn't want to get the vaccine, but only did because of the greater good and that social aspect.
Yeah.
So,
fair.
And I also understand that people do have concerns about it. I'm not ignorant to the fact that people are allowed to be critical and analytical of these things. And it's a fairly new strain of medicine. We don't know much about coronavirus as is, other than the other COVID stuff like SARS and whatever else. So they're just going to have to do educated guesses, which is the best we can do. So people being sceptical of the efficacy of the medicine, fair enough, or the vaccine. But people who are uninformed and misinformed, trying to push narratives that don't make sense.
In the grand scheme of things, I think we probably fall into that category as well, telling people to get their vaccinations. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not a scientist. Can't tell you the ins and outs. I could actually be wrong on this. We could be wrong.
Oh, totally. So my anecdotal evidence would be I've had both jags and I haven't had COVID.
That's terrible anecdote.
Of course it is, right? But I've been careful as well.
Yeah.
However, I'm well aware that I could still catch it.
Yeah.
But in my mind, having both jags, or both doses of the vaccine so far, no word of a top up yet, means that if I do catch it, or maybe when I do catch it, if we're being honest, considering how rife it is, it shouldn't have a massive impact on my health.
Yeah.
Shouldn't.
Yeah. It did, and Melissa wasn't double vaccinated when we had it, and it didn't really touch her at all. It nearly killed me. It was.
I remember how bad you were.
Dreadful.
Trying to record that episode where I was taking charge and you just sat there like a fucking mannequin.
And that was after 9 days of having it as well. Like, it was worse.
That was worse because you'd went like not eating, not sleeping.
Yeah.
God knows what else.
It was absolutely dire.
Yeah, he didn't have a nice time.
So I'm, very, very pro people not going through that. But then again, who did I catch it off of? Someone who was double vaccinated. So
is that true?
Yeah, I got it from Dean, Melissa's keyboard player. Because can still carry it, so
yes,
I have to look at these COVID passports and go, they're not going to be well, they're also not effective because it's just on an app on your phone, but you don't have to have the app. You can get your app or whatever, get access to your thing, and then have it sent to you as a PDF, or you can contact them and they'll send you a paper copy of it, etc. So I could literally go in your app, get the PDF, have you send me the PDF, change your name for my name, and then I've got a paper copy of it, and I can just go like this and show it to people because. Although it's got a massive QR code on it, venues don't scan them. Like when we go to riding rooms, it's not like the government are like, oh yeah, you've got to have people. You have to see COVID passports before people can come in. Here we can't even give people vaccines, but we're gonna provide you with a scanner to scan QR codes. It's just not a thing. So,
you don't even need a scanner though. You can use any mobile phone because it's just a link. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, no, yeah. So you'd be able to do that, but it's not photo ID. It's not like
it's
scan
not.
it
But I would think that some form of the Test and Protect app or whatever, some function of that will be to read those QRs if needed.
Have you got your
anyway? Yes, I have.
Okay. I'll check after. I'll scan yours and see what it actually takes us to. Because if it takes you to somewhere that has your name and date of birth, then I guess that would cause an issue. But then same idea, isn't it? It's like I could just use your COVID passport and just have Mike McLaughlin and your birthday on there and be like, yep, that's me.
Possible,
So it seems like a bit of a dodgy system. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent, but I needed to get that rage out. I've been raging about that all week.
Considering we're nearly 40 minutes in and we've done one bit of fan mail, I love it.
Joel Adams writes in and talks about the role of bass in modern rock.
Ooh, it's going to upset some people here, I think. Yes, let's go on. Thanks very much for writing in, Joel. Hey fellas, I've got a topic for you to discuss. These thoughts were partly brought on by Lucas Mann's stupid comments, which ones, and using a backing track for bass rather than a human player because it was more accurate. I've since heard of several other bands, including Periphery, who have used a backing track on tour instead of an actual bass player. As a bass player, this concerns me because the instrument is becoming even more of an afterthought than it has been in the past. That leads me to two questions. Firstly, what is the role of bass in modern rock? With extended range guitars in the race for lower tunings and heavier guitars, it seems as if bass is having a hard time finding room in arrangements. Secondly, where do we draw the line? At some point, are programmed drums and bass tracks going to be the norm, and we'll only see maybe a guitar and a lead singer on stage? That takes a lot of the fun out of a live show for me. What's the point of going to see a band live if half the players aren't playing live? Am I just going to a concert for the light show and £10 beers? Aye, probably. Thanks for maybe addressing my questions, guys. I love the show and wish both of you the best. All the love from the States, Joel. So fuck the Tories. I love it, Joel. All the way for the US. Fuck the Tories. Yes, my man.
So before we even answer his question.
Ginger drummer tests positive for COVID-19 and will miss immediate shows. Oh, Ginger drummer Vlad Ulasevich has tested positive for COVID-19. He will miss the first performance of the tour, which will find the band playing with pre-recorded drum tracks instead. Will I read the...
No. It's just it just tied in well with the story.
It's a great question
because again, Yeah, sure, we don't have a drummer, but because COVID.
Fair. I mean, we missed Bloodstock because
Yeah.
Martin was ill,
Yeah.
but we didn't want to play with backing tracks for a backup drummer. Not only was it too short notice,
Yeah, it was way
it's
short.
such a big gig to
Yeah.
lose an essential member and potentially not have that chemistry.
Yeah.
And the experience. I don't think I would want to play a gig that big without the rest of the guys.
Sure.
That might change if something else happens and there's another big opportunities or whatever. Anyway, to answer your question,
But if you had Martin's drum parts pre-recorded,
we do.
do you? Okay.
Well, I could take all the stuff, the stems for the last album.
Oh, I guess, and they're done to a click track, right? So
Yeah.
So
Martin plays to a click most of the time as well.
okay.
First question: what is the role of bass in modern rock?
Oh, I'm just gonna. The Lucas Mann's comments weren't necessarily about not using bass because it's more accurate. It was a sonic thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think because he has
A pre-recorded bass, you can get it to sound the way it needs to for the venue, versus a live bass can sound a bit muddy.
But in the same regard, Lucas has got backing tracks for almost every instrument on that. So if you're going by, it's all for the sonic reinforcement. Like you're as well putting a CD player on in the background and miming over the top of it, or just playing along with it, because that's what you're doing the majority of time. I'm not slagging people for using backing tracks, by the way. When used appropriately and used to add to a show, amazing. To add layers that you can't put in live, even better.
Yeah.
But it doesn't replace or negate the need for humans in the music.
I wanted to get in that, and KDH did a video about using backing tracks live, and I didn't
never
watch
watched
the video.
it yet.
But is using backing tracks live cheating? No.
Depends.
No, because music's not a competition.
No, I kind of get where he's coming from. My take on it would be, if you're using backing tracks to deceive an audience about a live performance, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, it's deception, not cheating, though.
Okay, right. Choose whatever semantic you want to. Right. If you're using a backing track to make your live show better, tighter, better live sound, to add in gaps that you don't usually have, sound. Devin Townsend is the perfect example of backing tracks and stuff in between his playing and the rest of the band that definitely add to the ambience of his music. Because you can tell a lot it's live, and there's a lot of parts of it that come in there like that will be like the backing vocals or stuff that's in the background that's just layers. Given his wall of sound production style, that fits perfect.
The problem with the deception argument is it always comes down to it's case by case, isn't it? It's individual. You need to go around every member of the audience and ask them if they fully understand what they're seeing, and to find out if they have actually been deceived or if they knew it all along. Either way, like, I'm not going to argue using backing tracks is absolutely potentially deceptive. It's always potentially deceptive, but it's never ever ever cheating, because you can only cheat in a competition.
So, just as a complete sidestep, then, right? Just
this is what the show's about conversation.
Yes, while we're talking about deception, right, and it not being a competition, Jessie J, incredible vocalist. Have to just be honest about that. She can sing like fuck. She was on like a Chinese version of, I believe it's like the X Factor or whatever, and it's meant to be a singing competition. All of her performances were auto-tuned. All of them. And I don't know why, because she can sing like fuck, but there is one where there are like 3 or 4 incredibly obvious and terrible artifacts on her voice. But it was billed as a competition.
She wasn't in the competition, though.
Clearly.
Like, if she was in the competition, because my argument is always you can't cheat in music, so why do I constantly go after people for like fake videos? It's generally speaking when they're trying to sell a product or when they're part of a competition. I've got videos taken apart people in competitions. So although that feels like a double standard, and it absolutely is a double standard, not one that's hugely relevant, because when whoever wins that wins it based on how good their voice is, and they go out and perform and they go out and put a record out, they'll be using autotune. That's just the way it is. I don't think there's a record that's been released in the last 20 years that doesn't have some form of autotune on it.
But I think there's a big difference between studio tidy up and live deception.
Well, I keep referencing it. I really, really love Toto's Falling In Between live Blu-ray. It's fantastic, and every single vocalist on that is auto-tuned to fuck. It's so much so that all the harmonies sound like keyboards, and it's glorious, because it's a different experience to what it would sound like to hearing like Eagles doing vocal harmonies, where everything's a little bit more gospely and rough around the edges. This like super polished 80s sound of like super tight vocals, it's like glorious. Bravo, boys.
That would probably fit the Toto sound in general.
Anyway,
let's go back to these questions. Sorry, I took us on a tangent there.
No, we're going to power through the news story, so don't worry about that. We're not going to go too.
These are the more important things, aren't they, really? So, firstly, what is the role of bass in modern rock? The role of bass in modern rock is to fill out the low end. I get where you're coming from with the extended range guitars in the race for lower tunings and heavier guitars. Absolutely. That's probably more of a gain versus clean tone argument in that regard.
But bass players are using more and more gain in the modern rock settings. So.
True, but if we're going to go by, since we mentioned Periphery, let's talk about Nolly. Nolly's backing tracks that Periphery would have used will be his recordings, and no doubt whatsoever those will be his playing, because he is a different animal.
Yeah.
Maybe a bad example to use. But also, Nolly's bass tone, most of the time, under a certain frequency is a clean tone, and above is where you get the grit and the gain.
Also, Periphery aren't tuning that low. They've got a few songs on 8-string, but primarily speaking, they're playing 7 strings. So they're not going low, low, low. They're not.
I think
they're low
tuned to about A, maybe.
A, more often than not. But
which is still low.
Not, there's lots of guys playing 8 strings and detuning the low string, or guys moving into 9-string territory. And in that, I don't want to be the old man that's like, what's the point of going that low? Like, you're just getting in the way of the bass player. You are getting in the way of the bass player. But then, the bass player can or should adjust to that and play something that's appropriate. Now, the danger is that the bass player then goes, oh, you've tuned down an octave. Cool. I guess I better tune down an octave too.
And there are bass players who do that. Is it a contrabass is an octave down?
Yeah, subcontrabass, yeah.
Subcontrabass. I believe there are like 36, 37-inch scale basses that are all the way down there. Why not just go with the Meshuggah model? Have guitars that are in F sharp, tuned right down, and a bass that's in the same octave, but make sure that both the guitar tones and the bass tone work with each other.
Yeah.
It's sonic reinforcement rather than fighting each other.
It's a weird one because, like, I want to say that, like, we're coming to a head with it where the guitar player and the bass player are functionally doing this, playing the same notes. Therefore, what's the point? I do want to say that, but then I have to look at a band like Meshuggah and go, oh, it works. You just need to know. It's so. I think it's about understanding frequencies and tone and how to get things to marry in with each other.
Yes.
Have you heard any of the new Dream Theater stuff with John playing the 8-string?
You told me it was essentially just him playing.
Totally called it. He's just playing. He's playing. John's 7-string playing is 6-string playing, but lower. His 8-string playing is 7-string playing, but lower. And it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. Some of it's quite cool, but it creates this really interesting sound to me, which is before you had this bedrock of bass, then John playing his riffs, and then keyboards in there sort of filling in the gaps, and then vocals over the top. Well, now you have bass, and John has literally just taken what he would play here and chucked it down here. So when I listen to this 8-string stuff, it's actually quite interesting because it feels like there's a hollowness in the middle, not in a negative way. I don't mean like it sounds bad. It just feels very different. It feels like super like weighty on the low end, with a little bit more room in the chest. Now, I don't want to say that that's good or it's bad. It's different. You can't sustain yourself on it though. I don't think.
I think the main band I would cite that have got away with having low tunings and not needing a bass player would be Animals as Leaders. And I think a big part of that probably is because Tosin and Javier lean very heavily into the bass elements, the slap, and the rhythmic components of playing guitar when you're tuned and droppy. So that's probably the closest. Plus, they're kind of sonic reinforced with the backing tracks as well. A lot of the synths and stuff, I would imagine, fill out where the guitar is at the right frequency but doesn't have the same guts as a bass. And that's another thing, talking about the role of bass in modern rock. I get that the extended range guitars are tuning into the same kind of frequencies, but you're always going to get a thicker tone from an 18-inch bass cab than you are from 12-inch speakers on a guitar cab. So that's probably where it fills in better. Those speakers are more efficient. They can put out lower output and move more air. And if your guitars and bass are tuned properly in terms of not fucking about with each other frequencies too much and causing phase cancellation, that'll probably just make it all the thicker.
I do want to jump in though and say I'm very sorry, Joel, because I'm not going to say I'm not on your side, but I have noticed that in the last couple of months, I have, in the two things that I'm pushing, I have been doing my best to push out a bass player. So playing hybrid guitar, saying to Melissa that we can go out as a duo, and it's essentially guitar, bass, and voice. You could add a drummer into the equation if you wanted to, but do away with the bass player. And also in the Satin Strut stuff, although we've got a bass player, he's busy with wedding band stuff, so there's a couple of gigs that we know that he can't do, and it's like, okay, should we get a depth for those? And I'm like, could get a depth for those, or we could get a keyboard player who plays like Rhodes piano type stuff
And get him to
and
do the bass lines
and
too.
does left-hand bass. There are bands that do that sort of thing, and check out like the fusion soul band Soul Live. They're great, and they're like a jazz group, and there's no bass player in there, and you wouldn't know it. You just wouldn't know it. And some of the Joshua Redman stuff, there's stuff where there's no bass on the albums. It's all just left-hand bass on the keys. So I'm doing my best to do away with bass players, but I love a bass player. I do love a bass player. I think the answer to it is like you need to, guitars are. I don't want to say evolving. Let's say devolving. You as a bass player, I think you need to evolve, like
sideways evolution.
Yeah, as when I was young, I would, to me, bass guitar was, well, you just play the notes that the guitar's playing to reinforce the sound that the guitar's doing. But when you listen to great rock bass players, guys like Steve Harris or Billy Sheehan, actually, he just put up a video of him doing Mr. Big's Daddy Brother Love a Little Boy, about a play-along video, and he's playing so much in that. Like, he really is overplaying. No, fuck it, he's playing the bass.
But Billy Sheehan makes his own space.
Yeah, and it works. It just totally works. And Billy, he runs a stereo rig on his bass, so he can have low end coming out of the bass and high end going to a different sound. And he's carved a sound for himself. I think that the role of the bass player is to evolve and make sure that you're working within the band rather than just being annoyed that someone's stepping on your territory.
Aye, okay, fair enough. Party Can are a bit funny, if we're just going with, again, anecdotal evidence, in the sense that a lot of Chris's bass lines are pretty much following the root notes of the guitars and stuff, but not always. And then Chris will go away and do wild solos over the top of stuff and whatever else, or play something that's not necessarily a harmony, but maybe like a counter melody to some of the riffs and whatever else. And I think a big part of his fitting in is his tone. So there's another thing that fits with the role of bass in modern rock when we're talking about tone sculpting and having that being part of the sonic assault and like the full package of the band. Guitars don't necessarily just have to have gain like that. The amp that I have at the moment, the modded Jet Set that I got from Daniel at Deadwald, that's got like I don't even know what the knob does, to be honest, like a phase inverter or something maybe. But if I turn that all the way down, it kind of dries the amp up and cuts not necessarily the bass out, but cuts like the sub bass, like the womp for the speakers.
Yeah, it's like a high pass.
Almost, yeah. But that's not what it is. But it does that kind of effect. So in reality, it kind of is. Last night, jamming away, Chris playing on his bass. He's got a lot of thump in his bass, a lot of like the upper end kind of clank, that treble percussion-y sound, but still plenty of guts on the bass end. So when I was fucking with that knob and turned it down a bit and cut out some of the bass from my cab, I was still getting the same punch, but I wasn't cutting into his tone. So both he's cut through that bit better. Yeah, that can be a big part in with that when you're talking about like bass in modern rock is getting the right tone. Yeah. Secondly, where do we draw the line?
It's different from person to person.
Yes, I have seen one-man bands who turn up and they have all backing tracks that they've programmed or recorded to, and found that they've been incredible. I've also seen full bands who have been shit that could have been better had they had a programmed backing track to run to. Yeah. So really hard to say, such a grey area to draw a line on. It's all going to be personal.
So this, am I going to go into a concert for the light show and $10 beers? The thing for me is, I think, I'm not speaking from personal experience, it depends what you're looking for in music, right? Some people want to go and see a live show because they want to see if something can be done live. Some people want to go and see a live show because maybe they're players themselves and they like seeing and hearing things being done live. They like variation, etc. Like I'm into a lot of jazz music. I don't want to go to a jazz show and expect and hear any backing tracks. I wouldn't expect to. It shouldn't be possible. You know what I mean? But for a lot of people, for the average Joe public, when you're going to a live show, actually for most people, what they're after is being near their heroes. That's all they're after. If you look at the pop world, if you went to see Britney Spears live, motherfucker, you are going to hear next to no live vocals whatsoever, right? But you are actually going for the light show in that scenario, and you are going because you want to be in a room with Britney. Would it be better to be in a room with Britney where she's actually singing? Well, it depends how good her vocals are that night, you know what I mean? But
Fair. I've been in a band that we used a laptop as the drummer. We called it Neil Jr., named after the drummer that was in the band before I joined. And since we didn't replace him, Neil Jr. was the laptop. And I found that was incredibly consistent for gigs in the sense that...
Because drummers are unreliable.
No, but like, you don't have to worry about gear
Yeah.
or the sound man fucking up microphones and not getting the balance right on stage. You've literally got line, click in, turn it up.
We're talking from an audience perspective. Like, where is the line for an audience? It's hard to say. Like I say, I think everybody is going to be different on this one.
We had plenty of people coming to gigs despite knowing that we didn't have a drummer.
Yeah.
So that was 2 guitars, a vocalist and a bassist, and a drum machine.
Yeah.
And I felt like that probably gave a lot of people a really consistent show. They knew what they were coming to see. The guitar sounded slightly different each time. The drums were always the same. Pace was always the same. Like we grew so tight to playing the tracks because it was such a consistent speed. There's no fucking about. And I mean, load-in time was so much easier as well. As you can imagine, rather than setting a kit up, you just go, right, play.
I think that the average punter, people listening to this podcast right now need to take a step back, hopefully, and think about what we've said, and ask yourself that question. Like, what is it that you are looking for when you go to a live show? What are you expecting? Where is your personal line? Let us know in that comments section below.
Yes, please.
Let's quickly do, super quick, because I really do want to power through these stories in like no more than 5 minutes.
Sure.
Just to give people the news.
I thought this one was just an interesting follow-up. So
shock horror. Go on.
What was it, 10, maybe 20 episodes, possibly longer than that, but probably not. We spoke about Steph Carpenter and his comments about flat Earth and aliens and COVID and fucking God knows what else, the Illuminati. But Chino Marino was recently on another show of some kind, giving an interview and made comments along the lines of, Steph, let's give him an easy time. Do you want to scroll down? I'll read the actual quotes. So frontman Chino Marino was asked about the comments made by Steph in an interview with the Peer Pleasure podcast, and here's his response transcribed by them. By the PRP. I'm surprised he's not more of a meme, referring to Steph. I think there may be a couple, but it was actually tough for a minute because obviously I've been friends with him since I was 10 years old, and he wasn't always this way. I will say the weed probably has a little bit to do with his conspiracies and this and that and whatever, because he just, and then probably sitting at home just looking at whatever sites he looks at, it probably doesn't help being smoked out and all that stuff and whatever. So I think it's probably very valid to understand the role of mind-altering substances and your ability to keep your cognitive critical thinking.
Yeah.
Fair way to put it.
The two things go hand in hand, don't they? Conspiracy theories and weed smokers. I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive, but there's a ridiculous crossover there.
I think there's, and you know what I think might be part of that gateway? Everybody told me that smoking weed was so bad and this and that would happen. Even if you look at like the reefer madness, the propaganda for the 50s, if they're lying to me about this, what else could they be lying to me about? Yeah. And that becomes not just a gateway drug, but a gateway mind opener to being the wrong end of critical and not being realistically critical potentially. Which is the same, like some of the arguments I've heard for Flat Earth are, if they're lying to us about this, what else they're lying to us about? And that's like such an invasive and perverse thought that it just becomes malignant.
Yeah. And ignoring the fact that we've known that the Earth is round since before they were a thing.
You get me, right? Like, entirely. It's just one of those ones where it becomes such a perverted thought that if this one thing isn't real, then you shouldn't believe anything else. That's such a dangerous mindset. Anyway, to go back to the quote,
it's weird,
Chino continued, it's weird though, when we're together, it's like we don't even talk about any of that stuff. We play music, we laugh, we have a blast playing music. We're still friends the way we were when we were kids, but it's not like I haven't heard him go on his tangents before. And it's just like I'll listen for 2 minutes and then I just can't. You know what I mean? Because he'll go off into no man's land. But yeah, it's kind of tough because obviously I want to support him. I feel like everybody should have their opinion on certain things here and there, whatever. And then he goes on. I'm not one to say that he's got to think this way or whatever. I think it's a little outlandish, some of his views on the world, the planet itself. But I mean, I fucking love him, man. He's a really, really sincere and he's smart, which is crazy. He's very loving. He's probably one of the most generous people that I've ever known in my whole life. From the simplest thing, if he has something, you have something, he's always been like that since we were kids. And then to talk about the other side of it, obviously Chino mentioned something about trauma. And after reading this, I can understand how that would maybe traumatise anyone into thinking in a dangerous way. So Chino also tried to stick up for Carpenter when the host pointed to clickbait headlines resulted from Carpenter's statements. I understand too that it's like, yeah, you can have your opinion, but you got to know the consequence once you say it. And the consequence is probably going to be a lot of people talking shit, which is fair. Like, I think that's a very realistic way to view the world.
Yeah.
You say things in the public eye that are any way, shape, or form interesting, you're probably going to have people that will criticise you rather than your thoughts.
And you're going to be misquoted.
Yeah, of course. Kind of like what I was saying earlier. Sometimes it's like, just keep it to yourself. You can believe in whatever. I'm saying that for his own good. I'm not saying that he has to keep it to himself because we don't want to hear it. I'm just saying you don't want to get ridiculed sometimes. Just don't say some outlandish shit. Tell me that's not a fair comment.
But it's a fair comment, but it's also like a worrying one because it's like we shouldn't self-censor ourselves. I don't think by having to take into account what society deems to be right or wrong, because you could easily have said the same thing hundreds of years ago, being anti-slavery, being like, well, if if you're anti-slavery, just don't say anything about it, and people won't criticize you for being anti-slavery. Because there were times where you would have been criticised for being anti-slavery.
Okay, right, I get where you're coming from. Yep.
I'm going a bit reductio ad absurdum there, but
I agree. I think that's a very niche example, but as a blanket statement, fair enough. So Chino continues, but I will say I don't think anything that he says is coming from a negative place either, talking about Steph, because he's like really worried about society, and I think that's a little bit of paranoia. I don't want to speak for him, but I do feel like a little bit of it, and I feel like I said earlier, maybe the weed doesn't help with that, but he's paranoid. And he has some right to be about certain things. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I'll share it. We were in Paris during the Bataclan attack, and we were scheduled to play at the Bataclan the next 3 nights. We were doing 3 nights there. And we'd flown in a few days earlier, and the night that we got there, or the next night that we were there, this is still a night before our show, Eagles of Death Metal were playing. And Steph and Juan, our band assistant, and someone else, I think our guitar tech, they went to the show. They were in the audience, they watched probably half the show, and I think they decided, all right, let's leave early and go get something to eat. And they left the show minutes before the terrorists came in and shot it up. And I mean, I was at the hotel watching the news and I saw it go on. And then I started getting calls with everyone calling me from here saying, what's going on? But I could kind of tell he was disturbed by it then, escaping that situation. But I think how close he was to that tragedy. So I know that that's affected him. And I know certain reasons why he has a little bit of trauma from that. And that's tough. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I wasn't there, but I was going to be the next night. What if it happened the next night? And my daughter was with me. She was 13 or something at the time. And my wife, they were with us. If they were there, they would have been on the side of the stage watching the show. I think about that stuff and it's heavy. And I know that I couldn't imagine being there that night. I didn't know that he was there. And I can understand if that would have had an impact and a trauma on him and his thought process of life.
Yeah.
And even like his risk-taking assessments. If you've been in a situation that's been that traumatic for you, you might find that your borders are blinded. Either you become less sensitive to things or you become more.
Yeah.
Probably more most
also
of the time.
At the same time, I feel that like Chino should be able to have his own sense of trauma from that, because actually what you should be able to take from that is, I wasn't there, but people I know were there, and I could have just as easily have been there, and it could have just as easily have been the next night. And that could, I mean, that isn't that the whole point of terrorism? It's supposed to instill that sort of sense of terror in people, that this could happen to any of us at any time. To just put it off and go, oh well, actually it hasn't really knocked me at all because I wasn't there, is I'm not saying it's a bad way to deal with things, because if you deal with it the other way, terrorism kind of wins. You don't want to do that, but it should really impact everybody. And the closer you are to it, like Chino was considerably closer to the Bataclan incident than we were, so he should have a higher level of trauma than us.
Which adds into why he thinks that might have had an impact on Steph's.
Yeah. The thing with
reality,
with Steph and his mad conspiracy theories, the reason I don't take issue with it, although we made fun of him for it, the reason I don't really call him out and make him out to be an asshole in any way, shape, or form is because he was asked about it. He was asked about his views. Right, he is not out there trying to change people's minds in any way, shape, or form. Like. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind, and it's anecdotal, so I shouldn't really say no doubt in my mind, but it is still no doubt in my mind that there is a massive, massive crossover between weed smoking and conspiracy theorists. But that doesn't mean that all weed smokers are conspiracy theorists. Case in point.
I don't smoke weed. What are you talking about?
But then, like Lucy, She's super into conspiracy theorists. She loves her conspiracy theorists, and I don't. Lucy's one of my favorite people to spend time with, and I love it when she goes off on a conspiracy theory rant at me, and telling me about the Queen being a lizard and shit like this, right? And
she's not David Icke.
yeah, and I love making fun of her for it, and she fully knows that I'm going to do it, and she steers into it. Like, and you know, it works because those are her views, and those are the things that she enjoys. You know, spending her nights doing. It's like her hobby and her passion, if you like. But she's not out there trying to change the world with it.
I think that's like a really good distinction to make. If you are genuinely interested in something and it has like sparks a passion in you, and you want to go research it and solidify your own worldview or challenge your own worldview, fair enough. If you hold those opinions and you've got a clear thought process to how you got there, totally fair. If you are not pushing it down people's throats or like chucking agenda at people, fucking wire in, fill your boots. But you're right.
Socially liberal.
The difference is obviously you've got people in the street who are standing with battery-powered fucking speakers that they've bought themselves, claiming to be some sort of authority, preaching at others, whether that be on religion or otherwise or anything else.
Yeah.
That's a different territory completely than I have my opinions. We'll talk about them if you ask. I am not afraid to give them, but I'm not throwing it at you.
Yeah.
I'm not choking you with it.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, okay, we've got two more things that we'll just power through. What does the future hold for the biannual Namm Show?
Probably not a lot.
This is just because the Namm has announced that its biannual Guitar Mecca would be replaced with a single summertime extravaganza in Anaheim. I always thought it was strange that Namm had two shows, the winter show in Anaheim and then the summer show in Nashville.
But it's a trade show. I can understand why it would be twice a year. There's a lot of companies that will miss the first one or the second one, or maybe logistics or new products.
But the summer show, the Nashville one, has always been the smaller of the two, which far fewer people even go to, from an artist perspective either. In fact, like, you know, when I was much more active in the guitar instrument community than I'm choosing to be now, it was very much a case of like, well, obviously you've got to go to Namm. Like, obviously, of course you've got to go to Namm. You know, they describe it as the guitar Mecca, because it is, but there was never that vibe around the Nashville show. That was like, oh yeah, I guess I'm going to the Nashville Namm thing, but it's not like I'm not excited about it. I've just got to go and do it type thing. I just wanted to draw attention to, you know, we're not going to go into the discussion of it, but yeah, they're going to replace the Namm Show with a single Namm Show in Anaheim in California. My comments on this would be that it's going to be a summertime extravaganza in Anaheim. That gives me the fear, right? Because I am more than happy to go to California in
reasonable weather
in January. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm fine going there in January. The idea of going there in June is a little bit more terrifying.
Nah, California's pretty good in that. Well, I mean, it's hot, but it's nice. The times I've been to Cali have been July, August time in the year, and it's always been beautiful.
But it's a different type of beautiful in January. It's still beautiful, but you're not like
on fire. That's fair. As long as it's not fucking killer humid, I don't mind. If it's dry warm, I'll survive it.
I guess the other thing to take into consideration, I mean, aircon is everywhere, so this point isn't really massively relevant, but it's a different thing, like going on holiday somewhere, June or July in California. Okay, I can totally get on board with that. June or July in the Anaheim Convention Center,
in a sweaty warehouse,
hundreds and thousands of people in the basement of the Namm Show. Oh, it gives me the fucking fear.
And
especially with COVID.
I was just going to say, add COVID into that, and then you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah. But we are supposed to be going to the Namm Show at some point.
Yes.
But I think this points that this is on Ultimate Guitar, by the way. Points that they're raising, like YouTube versus Namm. Summer Namm is always underwhelming. Major brands are out of the Namm Show, generally speaking.
I don't get the YouTube versus Namm argument unless you don't want to be there. Like if you're just bothered about the equipment, fair enough. But it's never been just about a trade show. It is a networking opportunity.
Well, it always used to be just a trade show, and then it became more of a networking opportunity.
Oh, totally. But I'm talking about modern context. Beforehand, it would just be the brands that turned up and then selected guests.
Yeah.
Now you could get a fucking ticket to Namm in the back of a cereal box.
Yeah. But the question is, like, given the opportunity, let's say we happen to Perry decides he's had enough of being Perry and gives up on Ormsby and is like, guys, do you want? You can just have the company. It can be your company, right? And we've got a budget to promote the products for a year. Like, how is that budget best served? And I have to question whether going to Namm is the best use of that budget. I don't think it's the best use of that budget, because think about it from this perspective. When you go to the Namm Show and you spend all this budget, it's a music retailer's event, so you're trying to sell your gear out to suppliers, etc. But the big reason companies really want to go there now is because they want to go there so people can come and check out their gear, and people can go and they can play the gear and they can take videos of the gear and they can share it on the internet and stuff like this. But now you can cut out all of that by literally just having the people that are on the internet that share stuff with people and shoot stuff and make it look amazing and sound amazing. You can literally just have them put the stuff out to their audience, and you can pay them to do that. And it feels better when you do that, because you're paying an individual musician a good amount of money and you're helping them with a salary rather than paying the Namm organization. And your product is going out to more people in a more focused way that you're in a little bit more control of. Like, it just, from a business perspective, it makes sense to be investing in YouTube content creators. It just that makes sense. I picked up another I'm doing another sponsored video over the coming month. I've got some product coming
nice
over the coming month that it's not a big sponsorship deal or anything, but it helps. It's just a little bit of cash, and
I'd imagine it's something you're interested in as well.
Yeah, it's the Black Mountain slide. They do a ring slide,
right? Okay.
And they do thumb picks which are spring loaded, so that you can flip them off and flip them on.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to checking those out. And they obviously feel that my audience is an audience that would enjoy that.
But it makes sense. You do a lot of country and blues stuff and Delta blues and whatever else. So the stuff where you probably do need to do hybrid picking and chicken picking and all that kind of stuff.
Going to the Namm Show for those guys, is, I'm not saying they don't do it, because I'm sure they do, but it's a massive expense compared to giving me a couple $100. Like,
well, I know the booths don't exactly come cheap.
Yeah.
But I'd say horses for courses. They're different things, aren't they? Really. Yeah. Like, if you want to network and build your brand that way in person and get to know other people at other brands and maybe get to know distributors and use it as a trade show.
Yeah.
Perfect opportunity for your brand, and you will get the added bonus of having people coming along and making content and giving you free marketing and viral marketing in that regard, if your stuff's interesting enough.
Yeah.
If you want targeted marketing, then picking YouTubers who fit the niche of what you want is probably a better option.
Yeah.
So,
and just but from a consumer's perspective now, like going to the Namm Show knowing that Gibson aren't going to be there, or I'm sure Sir haven't been there for years. Like, you just have to wonder, like, from a consumer perspective, where is the line? Like the Birmingham Guitar Show, we know that you guys want us to go to that. We absolutely know that. We would love to go. And Phil Cross has said, if I can afford paid demos, I'll have you guys down, because my position is, like, we'll go to the show, but, like, our costs have to be covered. We can't just go as a leisure trip and spend a bunch of money for no real payoff. What's the point? So if we get invited by someone, like, I'm sure we'll go.
I would still go as a punter. I get what you're saying. I wouldn't want to go there and then
there's nothing there. When I went, there was just nothing there.
I've never been, so I don't know. Like, I've never been to any trade shows, so that's probably where the interest comes from in me.
Because there's, I mean, when I say there's nothing there, it's not true. Like, you're going to get to go around and play brands that you maybe haven't heard of, and you might find something cool. But for a show like the Birmingham Guitar Show, if you're going down because you're like, oh, I really want to, I've heard good things about this run of guitars or whatever, I'd like to go and check them out. Don't expect any of it to be there. That's just the way it is.
I think trade shows are potentially dying.
Yes.
I know that
not even potentially.
I think COVID has pushed Namm into that position where that was probably the last of the Great Mohicans.
Yeah, I would say to anyone involved in the Birmingham Guitar Show, Phil included, I can't speak on Mike's behalf, but I'm gonna try to. Like, when I talk about going down to a show like this, I'm not looking to make money. I'm not looking to go down there and come home a richer man, right? I'm happy to go down and do all of the social things and have fun with people, all of that stuff. I just want to know that I'm going to have somewhere to stay, and it's not going to cost me a fortune to get there.
That's almost a party cannon motto. See if you can cover our fuel and give us a floor to sleep on. We're probably going to play your show.
Well, I'm older than that now, so if you can
bring a coffin case that you can fall asleep in after drinking too much whiskey,
if you can cover my costs to my fuel to get there, and then make sure that there's a bed that I'm sleeping in, Ideally at a Premier Inn, so I can have their delicious breakfast when I wake up in the morning. I'm fine. I'm fine to do it because it'll be fun and it's nice hanging out with people and all that stuff.
I'll even share a double bed with him. Just saying. Just saying.
So let's jump on to the final thing. That it's not. Usually we save the main story for last, but you know how I like a Telecaster.
Well, today's been a bit of a free flow episode, and somehow it's took us longer to get through than the shortened edition we kind of expected. But I'm happy with that.
I am going to bring this up, and I'll just turn the volume off, and we'll just talk about what it's on. So Fender have, actually, I guess the volume is probably quite useful for this one.
The Violinmaster, Yuri Shishkov. The Violinmaster is a Telecaster built by Fender.
I'll just ride the volume.
Inspired by a 308-year-old
whose work became a legacy, set the unreachable standard for others.
I feel like we're giving Fender a lot of promotion here.
His creations, paying millions for his masterpieces.
Oh,
when they release cool instruments, we're going to have to talk about them.
A crime
Good point.
to own them.
And we'll do it with any brand.
Look at that.
Antonio Stradivari.
The build quality, the attention to detail is ridiculous in it.
Yeah. There we go. It doesn't sound like a violin though, but it's
funny that.
Violinmaster is a
beautiful.
tribute to the man whose legacy inspired millions to reach new levels in music artistry. For many years, Fender created incredible tribute guitars.
And I'll give them their
This is
dues.
the first
They played
time
that as a
we are
blinder.
creating
One of the
two
Fender play instructors coming and playing the guitar.
Yeah.
Clever bastards.
Yeah.
Know that I think his playing's all that exciting.
that. I find that consistently with all the Fender play stuff. I love their. I'm just have to pause it and go off on a mega tangent here. But the amount of advertising companies, the amount of guitar instructional companies that come out with the the reason you're failing to play guitar is because you're trying to learn on YouTube. So check out our videos instead because we make the best guitars in the world, allegedly. Therefore, we're the best teachers in the world. Also, you've never heard of any of our instructors.
See, the thing is, like, some of these guys could be, and girls, could be like the best players or the best teachers in the world. But you're right, they don't have the tenure behind them, potentially.
Yeah. I'm just keeping the volume off so people that are watching can see it. Yeah.
I mean, they're more talking about the actual Stradivari than the Violinmaster guitar, but even the way the edges of the wood have been stained to make it look like how a violin would have been, certainly one of that age, that's been played and handled and kept in a case, even on the headstock, is beautiful.
Yeah.
I do like the kind of violin style finish. I love that wee bridge piece. I mean, I have no doubt that it would be the worst pain in the arse on earth for anything ever, but it's beautiful. Am I right in thinking that bridge piece is like a brass saddle? On like whatever that, I'm guessing rosewood bridge support. It looked like brass.
I don't want to turn the volume up and hear them tell me, but maybe we'll get another shot of it. But I know what you mean. Initially, I thought it was wood, but that's got a
brass.
Yeah, brass
on a wooden plate, flamed maple. What it looks at, and then what it looks like an ebony, like bridge.
Stunner. Yeah. I give it because I have to say, although like I give Fender a hard time, I'm gonna tell the Brent Mason story in a second because I played the 10 grand one. Oh look, chopping down trees.
I was just going to say you're not advertising much here by going, we are deforesting.
Yeah. But with Fender, like there's no denying that while they might have a lot of stuff that is produced in factories that isn't the best and is never going to be the best, but you don't expect that out of mass-produced stuff. When it comes to high-end, master-built stuff, Fender just attracts the best luthiers in the world. They really do. And their custom shop guys, their master-built grade guys, are just astonishingly talented people with incredible visions for things that they could make.
I think a lot of brands could be sold in that regards as well. You think about, is it Mike Shannon, the Jackson custom shop builder? I
mean, I do think very highly of the Jackson custom shop too.
Yeah, that my point is just that, exactly. If you've got the right people in your custom shop, it doesn't matter how good the rest of your stuff is and how big your profile is, you could probably trade on that kind of tenure alone if you've got the right people.
I feel that Fender, they keep luthiers, they keep master built guys in house because any one of them could leave at any point and set up their own successful guitar business. For example, John Sir. Like that's how that went down. So there you go. That's the Fender Fender Violinmaster. Let's just check the
G and
price
L
on
were a
it.
split off of Fender, were they not? Was that not actually Leo's company?
Yeah, George and Leo. It wasn't really a split off. It was after he sold the company.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, you start a brand, you make a brand super successful, and then you go fuck it and make another brand
You're gonna
to
make
fill in the same
a guess on the price?
market. We're going to make a guess on the price.
Yeah.
How many of them is there? Just one?
I think it's just one.
25
They
grand.
probably won't even have the price on here. To be fair, I'm just having a scroll in case the.
More info at Fender Custom Shop.
Yeah, there's no price.
Click on the Fender Custom Shop link and see what it says.
It's never gonna.
Oh, please tell me how much it is. Oh, learn more. Limited edition, there must be more than one then. No price.
No price.
What is specs? Maybe that's got a price on it.
Nah, not a chance.
Nah. It's one of those ones, if you want to know the price, you can't afford it.
Yeah, generally speaking, that is.
If you're making inquiries before
Yeah.
that aren't, I need this,
Yeah.
then they waste your time.
So just a quick one. Yeah, I was when I was in Guitar getting the Nord. I did play the
Bring
10.
this up on screen just while you're talking.
I did play
Just
the
bonny.
10 grand the 10 grand Brent Mason guitar,
Obviously.
and it's got a great neck on it. Feels great, played great. Bridge pickup was a bit low, needed to come up a little bit. But that's easily fixable. But you know what? I took massive issue with I realised I took massive issue with a couple of bits on it. So
The finish part was the one
yeah,
I read.
you're paying 10 grand for that, and it's supposed to be an exact replica of Brent's guitar, an exact replica of what Brent plays. In fact, in the market material, Brent even said he can't tell the difference between them, right?
Liar.
And it's a crock of shit. I know it's not an exact replica, first of all, because it features a bender which is switchable from a B bender to a G bender. So that's not in line with what Brent plays.
He's also the B
He
bender
just
on
has
it.
a B bender on his. But when I was looking at the relicing, the wear on it, when you look at the top of the guitar where you would rest your arm, Brent's been playing that guitar for 40 years, right? And it was never finished properly in the first place. The grey paint on it is just car
It's primer.
Yeah.
Aye, we spoke about this
So
before.
that
remember?
that's all just worn away, and it's down to bare wood, right? There's no doubt in my mind that Brent's version of the guitar there, he's just worn that away, and he's not then gone into a shop and been like, guys, can you refinish this for me, but only refinish the natural wood bits? Because on this fucking 10 grand guitar, when you look at that wood bit and you touch it, it's gloss. It's glossed. Like, it's literally, it feels like it's got a nitro or even a poly coat on it.
Is that over the top of the primer paint as well?
No.
Weird.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
Unless
it was glossed and then primed.
Well, what I was going to say is it could be a clear sealer to stop any of the primer going into the grain of the wood. But don't know.
Either way, like,
weird.
it's hard for me to comment because I've not held Brent's or looked at Brent's in the flesh. But I would imagine that if I needed to tell those two apart, I could literally just look at that part and go, "That's natural wood. That's got a gloss over it. This is the replica." So £10,600, I think it was.
Pocket
something
change
like that. And was good, but not 10 grand good.
No,
Not a chance.
I don't think I've ever played a single guitar that's been over 3 or 4 grand that has been worth the money.
Yeah.
In my mind. And I mean, I'm tight anyway, so maybe
You're
that's
not
part of that.
tight, you're Scottish.
Exactly, same thing.
I'm
I'm fiscally conservative, Levi.
I guess actually describing myself as fiscally conservative would be inaccurate because I love having money and then just pissing it away on things.
You do. But
it's
don't
economically conservative.
No, because you don't piss away money that you can't afford to.
I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about from a political point of view, from like from like a government spending view. I'm much more fiscally conservative in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah. So who cares about my politics? I don't. So yeah.
Why should we?
It's just a waste of time. You're never going to convince people to your worldview. It's just I'm yet to see it happen.
A friend of mine made a really, really good comment, and it's such a basic one as well. He was talking about religion, right? But you can attribute the organised religion and the throwing it down your throat the same way as the arguing about politics. It's all just noise. Got on with the day-to-day things that you have your hands on and you can change.
Yeah.
It's just a distraction from the shit that you actually can deal with.
Yep.
For the most part.
I can change my life and I can change those immediately around me, my close circle of friends. I was going to say friends and family, but just friends, right? And if everybody,
we are family, bro.
Yeah, if everybody took that worldview of just looking after their immediate circle of people, then what you'd very quickly find is all those circles start overlapping and everybody's taken care of.
That's called community.
Yeah. So I'm just going to end it there. Did you know This show is brought to you by our friends over at Ormsby Guitars. We want to remind you guys that there is still time to get involved in the upcoming Run 16 guitars. Those include these incredible hypes available in 5 new colours. That Dragon Burst is absolutely stunning. You can also get your hands on one of the Metal X's, again available in a range of finishes. My personal pick has to be these headless Vs, absolutely outrageously cool. Imagine one of those in an 8-string, I absolutely love these. And finally, the Ando San signature model, available in 6, 7 and 8-string availability. Go and check them out at Ormsby's website right now. This show is also brought to you by our friends over at Rev Amplification, a one-stop shop for all of your tonal needs. Head on over to their website to check out their range of lunchbox amplifiers, both the D20 and G20, 20-watt amplifiers with built-in 2-notes torpedo technology so you can record direct into your computer. If that doesn't suit, you can also check out one of their highly popular G2, 3 and 4 pedals, giving you that trademark Rev tone in a stomp box. Incredible tones, I use these myself. And finally, you may notice in the back of these videos a Rev Generator 120, an absolute masterclass in modern electric guitar tones. Check it out at their site now. So as always, a huge thanks to our friends and family over at both Ormsby Guitars and Rev Amplification.
Nearly got it right.
We love those guys. We love those guys dearly.
Very much so.
Because it's nice. It's nice to be supported. But as much as we love those guys, we love you guys for listening to the show, because we couldn't do what we do without the support that we get from you guys too. I mean, it's not strictly true, but it certainly fucking helps. Speaking of which, we need to do a bonus episode at some point over the coming week. But I know you're working a triple shift now.
72 hours ahead, brother. Yes, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I am relinquished from my job, from my responsibilities on Friday morning at 8:30 a.m.
Yeah. When people say I'm working a double or a triple, they mean like a shift, then they go home and sleep, and then they come back and they do a shift, and they go home and sleep. Right? Mike's not talking that. Mike's you're gonna be at work for 72 hours solid.
Yes, I have a bedroom at work, and if things kick off during the night, I'm expected to get up and obviously help out.
Yeah.
So I anticipate a very busy 3 days.
Yeah, fantastic.
I would like to think that I'm going to be wrong. Maybe busy could be good busy, but yeah.
Well,
fun and games.
I want to say I've got an easy week, but I actually, my week's not all that stressful. I've got Broadway Babies with Melissa on Wednesday, and it's a Rocky Horror night.
Nice.
But then Saturday is Edinburgh Jazz Bar.
Nice. You're playing?
No.
Are you just going along?
No. This is the one that I was playing, and then Melissa's like, "Wait, how long has it been since you've gigged?" And I'm like, "Just get someone else." You arsehole.
I don't think that's been an arsehole. I think having a high quality or a high standard of quality isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I don't think you don't have that high standard of quality, but I think maybe you and Melissa practicing more till you find that chemistry's exactly there where you need it to be.
There's risk either way.
Yeah,
it's like you either take a risk on me, someone who hasn't played live in forever, or you take a risk on getting somebody in who literally has never played with your band.
Fair.
Or somebody who she has played with the band. They did I think one gig with the band. Again as a dep in a last second situation type thing.
I think the thing is like there are so many consummate professionals, including yourself, out there who can slot themselves into gigs. Yeah. It just depends how. Or I suppose the defining factor is going to be how active they are in the local scene and how much they're out gigging versus just how practiced they are.
Well, anyone on the Edinburgh music scene, the guitar scene, will know Jed Potts. Jed Potts is playing guitar, so it'll be fine. It'll be absolutely fine.
More than fine.
And I'll be able to be there. I was going to say having a drink. I won't be able to have a drink because I've got to drive. But such is life. If anyone wants to come down midnight at the Jazz Bar,
nice.
Midnight at the Jazz Bar. It's gonna be wild.
That's your new emo band.
Midnight at the Jazz Bar. Fantastic. Yeah, right, cool. I'm going to go and spend the rest of my day. I was going to say I'm going to go spend the rest of my day doing... hang on, did I? I'm sure earlier I said it's okay. I've got appointments for my Jags on Monday. That's today. I've got today.
That's right. Sorry, yeah. What time?
2:00. So I've got...
so we'll see you at Monday Night Guitar Geek Club then?
I will be at Monday Night Guitar Geek Club. It's a
I
long
should
day.
Be there too.
I've got to do this. I've got to edit this after you leave in a second. I've got to go get Jags. I've got to come back and I've got to teach. Then I've got to go to Glasgow again for Soul Machine on Riding Room. So.
He's a busy boy.
Never ends. And I would really like to sit and play some piano today. That'd be nice. But
you'll find time, I'm sure.
Okay, cool.
It wouldn't surprise me if you end up playing piano while you're in the live chat.
I often do that because I've got my
I know.
keyboard here. So,
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And then in the live chat, actually, most of the time, for the second half of the show, I'm actually driving to Glasgow, and Melissa is sat with the phone, and I'm listening to the podcast, and she reads all the comments as they come in, and I tell her what to type in response to people, because I never stop.
Yeah, I'd like to think that I never stop, but I often stop the things I'm enjoying to do things that I'm obligated to do. So I never stop, but not in that regard.
Yeah, I just fill my day of things that I'm obligated to do, which is
Existential dread.
It makes it very easy. Like Melissa's like, "How do you work as hard as you do?" And it's like, well, because I'm taking all these things that I'm obligated to do. So it's not like I have a choice in these things. I've chosen to take them on, but once I've taken them on, they've just got to get done. So
I get you.
You just do them.
It's just having that mentality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just need to get through it.
Yeah.
The best way out is through. It's probably the best advice I've ever got, and it came from BoJack Horseman.
Final closing thought, right? That mayonnaise, the 8-string that I sent to US, the guy still doesn't have it. And the reason he doesn't have it is because UPS
Fucking Brexit.
have got it in their warehouse, and they're like, it's not got all the correct export documents with it. Like, we don't know what tariff it is. We don't know what woods it's made out of, anything like that. Never again will I ship a guitar internationally. Never.
The trouble I've had sending things international has always been way not worth it.
Yeah.
Even when Party Cannon sent our equipment to the States, the first time we went, we did it on a pallet using UPS, and it was a fucking nightmare. Not necessarily the logistics of getting it there. That was probably the easiest part. But see, arranging it, dealing with customer services, making the payment, having to make a second payment or having a second payment taken out of the account, like being double charged or something. Just loads and loads. And credit where credit's due, I didn't have to deal with any of this. Chris did.
Yeah, Chris.
But the fucking trauma that it must have cost him, and then the second-hand trauma that we were getting was fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
man.
in this scenario, it's like, I don't see how any of this could be an issue, because if it wasn't viable to leave the country, if the documents hadn't been done properly, it shouldn't have left the country.
Yep, and that's on them.
And I booked it via UPS, and they sent me all these questionnaires that I had to fill in to give them all the information, and I did all of that, and still it's fucked. And it is giving me second-hand trauma, because currently the guy can't get the guitar. They won't release it to him, right? So, like, what happens here? Are they just going to keep it forever? Are they going to send it back to me and I need to send it again, or I'm going to have to refund him, or like, I'm not refunding the guy because I spent the money. It's gone. I can send him my Nord keyboard.
I don't think he wants a refund. I think
no, he doesn't. He wants
the guitar.
He wants the guitar. But yeah, shipping guitars internationally, guys, don't do it. Mike, until next time.
Fuck UPS.